Okay, so Cesare, we have a big topic to discuss today.
An important one. It's
an important one. We discussed about that during our podcast number 65. So for people that want to go and check that. And I proposed to Cesare to make more kind of a workshop episode with the LinkedIn Live where people are really participating. And what we'll try to do today is to explain you how to write your intended purpose. For that, I will just ask maybe Cesare to help us first to understand again what we said during the podcast, and I will show you some slides that we prepared. And then we will make some practical exercise. I asked you to prepare 1 or 2 examples so that we can really feel that together and create that together. And what we will create today, I will make it also as a download so that people can get it if they want really to use it or to learn from it there. Okay, and don't hesitate also if you have some comments on this episode or what we are talking about. If you have some questions, let me know on the comments. I will try to pick that because there is a lot of comments. So I'll try to find it and then to ask the question to Cesare if he has an opinion on your question. If you have some difficult situation, also let us know and we'll try to see if this is covered here or not. Okay, Cesare, are you ready? Let's check where if the slides are ready. Yes, let me share that here. No, share here and share here. Okay, it's good. It's working. Okay, good. Great. So yeah, I see more people coming. So thank you from Slovenia, from Canada, from Netherlands, from India again. So thank you for that. Okay, yeah, just one thing, because I'm seeing some people that are trying to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really sorry because I still don't know how people can really get to the live without being connected to me. It's something I'm hoping that will improve. If I can give you a link to be better. But I see some people that are saying, where is the live? I don't see the live. So normally you should go on your notifications and then you see the live popping up normally. But I don't know, to be honest. I'm not on the LinkedIn part, and LinkedIn mentioned specifically that here is how it works. So I hope, yeah, it will. You will be able to find it because, yeah, I think it's really an important topic that people should attend live. It's better than seeing the replay afterwards. Okay, Cesare, the stage is yours. So what we talked last week, few weeks ago, I can't remember, was that. So,
yes, so intended purpose.
Talk about that with the people and then start from there.
So, I mean, intended purpose, this is really the first piece of information that one should generate for a medical device. It's the description of the problem, of the medical problem that you want to address with your device, with the device that you're going to develop. Because in theory, you should start with intended purpose even before developing the device. It's really the first step. And in this intended purpose, you write a recipe, essentially, in which you have ingredients, and these ingredients are the patient, the user, how to use the device, and at the end, you say what you want to achieve with your device. So what are your claims? And then comes your solution, which is your product, which achieves this intended purpose that you describe in this document. It's a very important piece of information because it's essential to have clarity here for for preparing the technical documentation, and especially very, very important for the clinical evaluation of the medical product. So if having clear claims, it's a fundamental thing for being able to do a very clear clinical evaluation.
And I think the auditor will really thank you if you have really good intended purpose, good information like that, because you will have a complete understanding of your products, and you will not have to ask you again questions and what about this, what about that, etc.
Exactly. And also, it's you try to avoid risk. I mean, I really had I've seen cases in which there were intended purposes that were done like in the last minute. There were these sentences, and then the auditor cannot understand what the device wants to do, what the patient population is, but they have to do something, right? And what they do is they pick a sentence, and then they ask you, where are the data for this sentence? And actually, there was not even a medical claim, but then suddenly you're struggling to try to find medical evidence for this non-medical claim, but the mess is done and it's hard to correct. So it's,
we have to do that first. We have really to work on that first, and
Yes.
not wait the last minute to send that to the audience.
This is really an important piece of information. So I like to stress that a lot, because it's sometimes it's a bit so disregarded or not properly prepared, and it's really a pity, because it makes life afterwards so much easier for many aspects.
Yeah.
And this intended purpose should consist of 5 major pieces of information, which are the patient population, the indications, the intended user, the intended use, and the claim. Sometimes people refer to intended purpose as intended use. Sometimes these two terms are used as synonyms, but actually the intended use is like a part of the intended purpose. It's the part in which you describe the devices. Often you will find intended use used for the whole intended purpose, just to know.
Yeah, so should we go now on each of them one by one and really try to explain how this is going? So I prepared this on the slide. I just try to divide that in each of the steps. So we have step 1, which is patient population. What should we write here?
So here is really about the demographics of the patient. So it's without thinking of possible disease or the medical treatments. You described your patient in terms of, I don't know, age, weight, ethnicity. So these factors that have nothing to do with being ill or having a problem. So it's just the part that's concerning the healthy side of the patient, right?
So just one thing. So nationality, is it really something that is important here?
Not well. If the nationality is strongly linked to some aspects that might be important for the product, then yes. I mean, you might have a product that's really only available in German, for example. Then you might constrain it to the German-speaking country, Austria, and so if that is really important, and you think, okay, this device should only be used with a patient which has this type of background, or typically also it might affect the type of data that you have to collect, right? If you because I mean there are aspects of our body that change depending on ethnicity, and so nationality might be an important information also for deciding that.
As we said, so all this information that we are mentioning here are some parameters that you defined here, but it's not mandatory to mention each of them.
Right, it's not mandatory.
It's related to that or not. If the age is not impacted by your product, if from baby, from a toddler to the older people, you can use this product, then the age is not really related.
So what we do, we put all these words there to allow us to not to forget things. So we want to be sure that we don't forget a parameter. But I mean, if ethnicity is not a defining factor for using the product, then it doesn't need to be there. If there are no restrictions regarding demographics, what I usually do, I say there are no restriction concerning patient population for the device. I don't know, let's call it MedTech 2000, something like this. And then I just explicitly say that there are no restrictions there. Usually, you have restriction on age, because as also you tend usually to be careful, especially with aspects regarding children. Yep. So also, if you have patients, if you have a device that gets into contact with the patient, then you have this biological compatibility. So you have special rules for kids, and then you really want to think: do I want to include them, or are they actually excluded? So that's the only factor that we have in 99% of the product is age, where we really specify that. But that can really make a difference.
One question that maybe I will say to people that are writing this is the fact that what you write here is really important, because this is what you will use also for your clinical evaluation.
Yes.
So it means that if you are putting from the age of 18 years to elderly people, you should have all this range of people on your clinical data, or you cannot do that. Yes. Correct?
And exactly. And what I suggest is also to try to structure things so that they already help for the clinical evaluation. For example, if you use age, if you want to specify age and you have certain groups, look at the groups that are already specified. For example, in PubMed, there are already some ranges that are defined, and then, for example, that makes your literature search much easier, because you can just say, okay, I'm gonna take I don't know, infants, and infants are defined in PubMed with a certain range. It might not necessarily be applicable to your product, but if it's possible, try to do that. Also, I mean, there are different ways to define an adult or a kid. It doesn't necessarily have to be age. For you might be defining a child in terms of weights, because maybe, for example, a defibrillator, it's what is important is not how old the patient is, but how big it is, so what the body mass is, and you can specify that. So it's really about thinking about it. And also, if you can, try to use existing scales. So if you want to define a certain type of skin, a certain color of skin, try to use scales which are available. Then that also makes everything easier for the clinical evaluation, because you can directly refer to specific skin colors which are encoded. There's loads of information, loads of scales outside that can be used, and it's really interesting to check them.
Do you as you are talking about scales, so do you recommend also to use the different metrics or conversion? Like when we are talking about weight, we can talk about pounds or kilograms. So should we mention that, or it's
well, most of the scientific paper, they use the standard international measures. So if you want also to use inches instead of centimeters, maybe specify both if you can, because I mean, most articles that you're gonna find, they're gonna use meters and kilograms and these units.
Okay, no, it's great. So I think here it's really complete, and you can understand that this part is really important for you really specify what is your population and who should you include or not on the use of this product.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to step 2 now, indication and contraindication.
Exactly. So here you're defining the clinical picture of the patient. So first you had this healthy patient, which was described in the patient population, and now you describe which type of problems this patient might have for using the product. It might also be a perfectly healthy subject. If you want to if you have an app that computes a score of your probability of developing diabetes, as an example which we have later, it doesn't mean that your patient has to have diabetes, actually, because it might be perfectly healthy, he or she doesn't have any particular problem, but he wants to compute this score, and then you won't have any specific clinical indication. You can discriminate also between medical conditions, which are like I don't know, symptoms that the patient might have. So I mean, your application or your product might be applicable when for patients that are having pain in certain regions, even though there is no specific diagnosis for a disease there, back pain, for example. Or you could specify really a medical indication, which is like a disease. And my suggestion there is also try to use standardized databases. I know there is, for example, for the medical indication, the ICD-10, so that you are sure that many people, many doctors can understand what you're meaning with that medical indication. Sometimes I noticed that manufacturers, they rush to write in this terminology, and then they use something which is, some people understand, but it's not the most commonly used term, I don't know, for the disease or the indication. It's worth investing a little bit of time, because then also that might help when you do the clinical evaluation, for example.
So do you recommend to also have a specialist, like a clinician here? Because I suppose there will maybe some R&D departments that are trying to develop some products, and they are trying to build something like a puzzle together and say, oh, I think it's for this and for that, without having any clinical idea of it. having a clinical is maybe a good idea to help you.
Don't leave the intended purpose just to the developer. I see that sometimes, not because they're not they're not smart, but because they have a very technical view, for example, and then they tend to describe your device in terms of the technique, or in terms of the solution, or in terms of the technical part. And that's like the wrong view of the intended purpose. That's more like the principle of operation of the device. And the intended purpose is really so important. It should be reviewed by as many people in the company that you can. So, and you should always have someone with some clinical competences that can tell you whether it makes sense or not. Or
yeah, because they know the vocabulary, they know what is used, they know all those things, so they can really make a filter and say, no, it's not really for this, it's for these specific things under this hierarchical disease, if I can say. It's not like
and like also my another suggestion is, this is seldomly done. So usually you see these intended purposes / intended use that are described like in a block of text. My suggestion is do it really as if it were the leaflet for the pills, for the pharmaceutical, that in which you find you have a chapter that's who should take this pill. You have the information, how often should I take the pill, and so on. Split the information so that it's very clear what you mean, because sometimes when you put everything in a block and you try to summarize that, either you repeat yourself, and sometimes there are like this conflicting information in different points, and you lose a bit the overview. So chapters, redundant sentence, this product is indicated for this type of medical problem, and so on.
Yeah, it's something after we have made this podcast episode and that we discussed about that, I looked at what you proposed, and I updated some of my templates that I'm providing just to have these sections instead of having a block of text, which I think really is readable. It's easy to read, and I think it's really clear then for an auditor that is looking at it, because at the end it's also for an auditor to really understand what we are talking about. And having a block of sentence with all the information inside in many lines is not really easy to read. So I really recommend that.
Yeah, I think it makes a huge difference. And in this chapter you can also specify important the contraindication. So which type of diseases or problem you want to exclude. You want to say, you shouldn't use my product with this type of symptoms. You shouldn't use my product if you are I don't know, patient with dementia that cannot handle the app, for example. So this is also the place to specify that. Also, just a side note, usually another typical exclusion for many medical products concerns pregnancy or breastfeeding. That is also to be specified in the indications or contraindications.
Okay, so I think here, as we mentioned also, this is thing that we are writing now, but after we have done the clinical evaluation or investigation, we maybe have to change that. It's just a preliminary scope, if I can say, but maybe we can still change the population or this or that after we have the result from some tests that we are doing.
Yes, you might have results from your test, or you might be finding papers that cite that for similar application, patients report, I don't know, itching or bruised skin, for example, and then you might have to update the side effect list or the contraindication list. Here they're still not side effect, but sorry,
so it's why we are saying create that at the beginning and say that it's really draft, and you have to. It's your guideline, but this guideline can change because maybe of the result that you will get throughout the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Step 2 is indication. Step 3 is intended user.
So here is you describe who should use the device. Very important is to specify whether the patient is also the user. So especially in this text, in this intended purpose, which are like in a single text block, this is sometimes left so implicitly. but it's a very important discrimination, because you might be looking at the patient in two ways. You might be looking at the patient as a patient, and at the patient as a user. So the patient is the one that at the end is getting the benefits from your product, and the user is the one that is using the product in order to get the benefits. And the same person might be both, but you might look at it differently. So for the user aspect, you might look at usability, and for the claim aspects, you're really looking at the patient in terms of the one that's receiving the therapy or the diagnosis. So it's a small but very important distinction that allows you to make clarity. And then obviously, I mean, you can have here specify if you have medical doctor, what their skills should be, nurses, lay person, the relatives of the patients. That could also be, it's often the case that you have a software, you might specify that here that they are lay person without a particular training, or do they need the training, which type of training do they need to speak a specific language, or so on. That's the place where you.
So this is mainly, when you say language skills, is the fact that maybe we will display this only in one language, so German or anything. So we don't authorize the use of this by other people that don't speak this language. So you are mentioning only for German speakers, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not something common I'm seeing a lot. It's why I'm surprised that some manufacturers will really restrict to some language. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's the place where to say that. And they're all important pieces of information that, especially for the usability. I mean,
when you are saying physical requirements of the user, so can you give us an example?
If you have, I don't know, a complicated bed that requires having strength for moving the patient in the bed, then you might say that this person must be able to lift heavy weights or have a certain physical capacity. So not that it is like maybe a very a person without much force and then cannot operate the device. There are cases. I mean, there are not so many maybe, but there are cases. And here we list everything.
And this is something that can be discovered during the test or the user test, the usability test that you are doing. You find that, and then you say, okay, we tested with some people that are not able to lift this amount of kilograms. Then we are putting, no, you have to have the ability to lift this kind of kilograms or amount of weight. So
this section is really important for usability. This is with intended user. It's really important for usability. Yeah.
Okay, great. Good. Intended user. Next is intended use.
Then comes a long one, which is intended use. As I said, sometimes people just call it intended use, this whole series, but this is really the idea. You say, okay, I specified who the user should be, and now I say how the user should use the device. Now here we're not speaking of user manual. So this is not the goal here is not to go into the detail, click on this window and press this button and then this will happen. So it's just to give the aspects that are clinically important for using the device. For example, which part of the body should you use the device on? This is for all hardware devices. So you apply it on a certain part of the body. You can exclude the mucosal membrane. You might exclude face. You might say it's only for skin or only for the arm. This is the place where one really has to specify that. And there are many aspects that go in the intended purpose. So so as I said, as we said before, it's not that you have to say for every point something. It's just think if you need this point. So point of view is it important to specify the location, the place in the world where you're going to use the device? You might have,
in the surgery room or in emergency room
or in ambulance or
sterile area or etc. etc.
The device might not be used on the street. For I don't know if you have these emergency devices, you might restrict the use only to indoor where there's no where you're sure that there's no wet floor. So that's an example. User environment, again, do you have some restriction on the requirements on the environment, humidity, temperature, amount of light? If you have a laser device, no reflecting surfaces, because that's dangerous. No mirrors or things like that. Then you have you can specify whether your device is invasive or not. That's also an information that goes here. Try to also take into account the information it's also given in the MDR, or for example, also of what are body orifices, what is the definition of invasive device, and so on. That's an important part. Intended location of use, again, so which part of the body you're going to use the device on. Here as well, keeping in mind what the MDR says concerning mucous membranes and similar things, so that you already prepare it, so that it also makes your classification then much easier, because it's already all there. How long you can use the device on a patient, how often you can use it, because you might say, okay, you can use it for 3 hours every 4 weeks maximally. That's a very important information that goes inside here for hardware device, for example. Contact, type of contact, duration of contact, keep in mind the 10993. So structure it already so that it makes your biocompatibility easier. So say if it's direct contact, if it's indirect contact, how long this contact is supposed to last. And then you already have all your information there that you need for the biocompatibility.
And it's important here, because as soon as you mention that, the auditor will already think about the 10993, and you already know it's this amount of contact, so you should have this test and this test and this test done. So he has already that, and maybe we'll go directly to check if you have that. If you have that, you will see, oh, there is a correspondence, then you are maybe in the safe side. I mean, I think the auditors are also looking quickly at some points and writing, okay, yes, there is a correspondence. Yes, the information provided, I have the test here. Yes, this and that, which is helping him also to say, yes, the company has made really a compliant test for that, and it's easier for you then.
And you avoid that the auditor makes his own, or at least you try to avoid that the auditor makes his own mind regarding, oh, I think that actually the device is going to be used for 30 hours instead of 10 minutes, and you make it clear, and then it can come with question, why did you specify 10 minutes actually like that? And then it was already there. You want to just start with, oh, this device is going to be used for ages. I don't know.
Okay. No, it's clear.
Here you can also specify how the device is going to be cleaned or sterilized, but it's not the place where you specify whether the device is packed sterile. So being packed sterile is a claim, and it should go all under the claims. So you can change your.
Will be sterile or nothing else? Just to say that.
Yeah, so you can say as a claim, then you would have the device is provided packed sterile, for example. But here you can specify what the procedure for sterilizing the device is, or for cleaning it. It is with which materials? Just with the wet cloth, or with you need alcohol, something like that. You can also specify with which devices your device is compatible. So you should only use it with this type of devices. Now, I know you build a hardware that is already a medical device, or needs to be used in combination with other medical device, but only with certain models, or only with models that abide some specification. And here you can specify that. And you can also have some warnings, some precaution of use that are really clinically relevant. It's not that you have to have all the warnings from the user manual, but definitely some warnings that are very important for the clinical use. I don't know. Don't use the device if the skin is red. Or that's a clinical warning, for example.
Yeah, be careful of that.
Yeah.
Just looking at the comments, there is some questions here. So yeah, for people that are here, there will be a replay that will be happening in YouTube as usual next week. One question is the intended population, should the intended population cover also the user?
No, so the user is covered in, at least that's how we do it, in the intended user section. So in step 3. So the here is where you specify the user.
And here it's only the people that will be
treated
used,
or
the device will be used on.
Only the one that are going to get the benefits, let's say, of the device in sense form, the clinical benefits, so the improvement in health or the improvement in quality of life or the wound healing or I don't know, it's infinite examples.
I have another question for Raghavendra, who says, what is patient needs and population in user requirements? I don't understand this one, but...
what is patient?
What is patient needs and population in user requirements?
Is it somewhere here in the list?
No, it's why I'm asking. Maybe user requirements is maybe also another vocabulary that people are trying to understand. Is more about indication, maybe, or why we are using this device.
Patient needs, yes, sounds like, I mean, the patient has some issue that needs to be solved, and that would be here in the indications.
Exactly. So yeah, so it's why. So for you, as you say, it's why we separated all of this in different chapters, really to focus each of the indication of each of the requirements. It's not really one thing that is covering everything. So we are really putting everything in its box, but the total of the information that we put here is really the intended purpose.
Yeah, and also a note, I mean, it's not that you must have all the boxes for every device. I mean, if you have a medical device, essentially the boxes that you must have are, unless your device is an accessory, you are going to have the patient and the patient population and the claims. Those are going to be there unless it's an accessory, obviously.
Yeah.
But it might be you might be dealing with healthy patients, and in that case, you don't even need the indication. You might have devices that are totally automatic. You might not need a user. And in that case, we might also not have to have specification on the intended use. But so patient population and claims are 99.9% of the times there.
Okay. So yeah, as you said, you have to use that as a guidance. If you think that, as you mentioned, if there is no intended user, because mainly it's an automatic device, there is no need to fill that. But should we mention there is no intended user, there is no intended use, there is no this kind of thing?
So my suggestion is, you can also make it explicit. So say this device is totally automatic. There is no intended user. It's just an information which is there in addition, and it helps.
I think it can be clear for some auditors that are waiting maybe to find this information. And as we've said, more you are clear with them, better it is. We go to step 5, which is
claims. Very important and very here is where one really has to pay attention. Claims make a huge impact on the classification. So think really well about the claims and try also to distinguish between the type of claims. You might have a performance claims, which is something like, I don't know, my device allows to make a cut of 4 inches, and then on the skin, and that is it's already something that you have to clinically validate, but it's not like a benefit. It's more like a clinical technical feature, I say. So it's not something that relates to verification, but it's something that belongs to clinical validation, but it's very technical, I say so. And then you can have really the patient benefits. I mean, through this cut, you allow the wounds to heal 10 times faster. I don't know, something like that. That is the benefit, or the patient gets improve his quality of life, or gets better soon. This way, and also specify, as I said, whether your device is sterile, and you also can. Oh wait, I'm missing. You can also have. You might also have ergonomic claims, for example. So you can say my device is optimal to be placed on a specific position of the body, on the eye, or to be inserted in a specific area of the body. That's an ergonomic claim, and that actually needs also to be clinically validated, and that's where it goes. And here you can also have, especially now in Germany, there is a lot of interest for medical apps, and since there are new laws with this, it's called the Digitale Versorgungsgesetz. So whether you have claims that are not stringently clinical in sense for the patients, but you might say my device actually allows to save 10 millions per year in the cost of cares, or to make it allows to speed up the work of the doctor. So maybe your application is nothing, or your product is not so innovative in terms of what the patient gets, but it allows to do the therapy 3 times faster. That's also interesting, and that also weighs in the benefit risk profile, right? So it's not a direct benefit to the patient, but it's like an healthcare benefit that is still interested to list here.
Do you think an auditor can have some comments to that?
In which type of comments?
So to the non-clinical claims, so something that has nothing to do with the patient. Do you think they can have some arguments to say how you are doing this, or prove me that, or this or that?
So for the healthcare claims, one would have to prove them somehow. For the non-clinical claims, what we try to do is to make evident that this claim is not clinical, because sometimes there are claims that sound a bit clinical, but they are not really, and we try to avoid that an auditor comes and says, why didn't you clinically validate this feature? And by putting it in the non-clinical claims, we try to prevent that, or to allow the auditor to think, okay, what are they trying to say here? They say it's not clinical. What do I think about this? They might be right. Yeah, I don't need to check that they collected clinical data on that.
No, I think it's
that's why we have also appointed non-clinical claims.
I think it's good.
And also,
one thing that is great on this is the fact that if you are doing that with your team as an exercise with your team, when you are starting to putting some claims, then you can take those claims and put them in the different buckets and say, oh, this is a performance claim, this is a benefit claim, this is a non-clinical claim. Or if you have an argument and say, oh, we don't have any proof of that, but it's more like something that is not clinical. Here we have this box non-clinical claim where we can put that inside, which can also help you during any workshop that you are doing with your teams.
Yes, and it also helps you to structure afterwards the clinical evaluation. So because you know that you on those claims you don't have to collect data, for example, you have to collect on the other one, or you can show that for those claims you have enough data regarding verification. So that I mean, patient data, if you have just a patient database, that's a non-clinical claim. The product allows to store patient data and to send them remotely. Okay, it's a feature of the product. You want to have it in your marketing material, so you can have it in your marketing material, and it's clear that it's not a non-clinical claim. Also, sometimes important disclaimers. This allows also to understand why a device has been classified in a certain way. You might say my device is not to be used for making automatic diagnosis or automatic to provide automatic therapies. I mean, it's nice to give it here, so that might bring your device in a lower class because you're really stating that. And also what the risk and side effects are, it also goes in there. So you might say that using your device might provide, as I said, might cause the skin to become red. You have clinical data for that, and this goes in here. It's like a negative claim, let's say, in some way. So yes, I think that you claim, but that is not super. Let's say so.
Yeah. Just to warn people. I have here a question from Noor, which is, so to get it right, claim must always be technically, clinically proven.
Yeah. Yes, for each claim, for each claim that is clinically relevant, you will need clinical data in a form or the other. So it doesn't have to be a clinical study; it might be clinical data from other studies that have been already conducted that you find in papers and so on. And for the non-clinical claims, you might have you may say it's enough for you have the validation. For the ergonomic claims, it might be enough to have usability. If you say my handle is ideal for the surgeon to be held during a procedure, you don't need to test that directly with the patient, but you might have to ask several surgeons to rate your handle in comparison to the standard one, for example. And
so it's a survey. We can do a usability test or survey and then check if this is really proven. And the auditor will look at that. So first, you will look at the claims, and you will look at each of the claims, and you will see why you are saying that. Can you prove me that what you are saying is correct? Have you already seen some claims? I mean, I think you said at the beginning some claims that are not proven at all. From there is no proof at all.
What do you mean there? If I've seen claims that
have you seen some products where there is some people that claims something, but there is no kind of backup information or backup data or literature that is proving those claims?
That I'm not allowed to say. So, let's say that shouldn't happen.
That shouldn't happen. No. But I mean, I'm sure maybe some people will recognize that. There is some claims that are difficult also to prove, and I have seen some people that are claiming, for example, some sterilization protocols for their products, but at the end they never tested it, so it's something that is a bit difficult.
I also said something that wasn't 100% right. I mean, for the clinical claims, let's say in most of the cases you need clinical data. It means data that are collected using a patient. But there are some type of clinical claims that you cannot actually prove on patients, and it might be enough to collect smart data from some type of verification, for example.
Can you use equivalent products, like for the CR, to prove some clinical information, to use some equivalent products if it's really, really, really an equivalent product that we can prove?
You can do that. I mean, especially I think sometimes this tool is used a bit in the wrong way. So sometimes I think that there are some aspects of your product for which you can use equivalence. It doesn't need you don't need to say that the products are completely in every aspect equivalent, but you can say that there are some aspects for which you are going to use equivalence. I don't know if you have a knife and you want to say that the width of the knife it's enough for producing a certain cut on the skin, that there might be other 50 knives on the market. They all have the same width, and then you can say, okay, concerning width, my knife is also can achieve the purpose that I'm claiming, because all these other devices are also doing that, but they maybe have a different handle, or I don't know, that they have another aspect that is not directly related to that, for which you might still have to collect some clinical data, or for which you cannot use equivalence. So it doesn't need to be an all-encompassing thing that you have to completely validate the whole product using equivalence. You might just do a sub-part of it with equivalence.
Yeah, it's great. So great. So thank you for that. Let me check if there is another question. On a question from Nigel Scotland, so I know very well Nigel now. So Nigel says, for products that has been on the market already for 25 years, can I use the data that nobody was injured over that period?
So yes, concerning the safety part, you can say that. So there are different aspects. So now we are getting into the topic of clinical evaluation, all right?
Apparently, yes.
So that's the part on the demonstration of safety. So in the demonstration of safety, what you have to show is that your risk analysis essentially has identified all the risks that you can possibly come up regarding your product. And if you say that the device was on the market for 25 years, and we got this feedback from the market, this problem, and none of the problem highlighted new risks that were not in the clinical evaluation, then you can say, yes, I can use that to say that my risk analysis is complete, and you can use it towards this demonstration of safety. But that's hard. You cannot use it most likely for the demonstration of performance. Okay. Usually performance cannot be demonstrated with post-market surveillance data.
Clear. We have also a comment, a question from LM Ein. So she was also on my podcast. So hi, LM. What is the benefit claims precisely? Can you give an example? So I think we talked about that here. So here on the claims, benefit claim here, yeah.
So benefit claim is really which type of benefit does the patient get out of your application. So it's not like a clinical technicality, like I don't know, the device you insert it into the body and it's gonna be absorbed by the body in 15 months. That's a performance claim. So that's belongs to the performance of the device. But the benefit could be that through this device, the patient gets less pain. So, or his quality of life gets better, and
it's the outcome.
So what if you think of what it's going to tell you the patient why he likes this device? It's going to tell you, oh, I'm faster, I can do things that I couldn't do before, I can move better. I know Parkinson patients, I don't have pain anymore, my life has improved. All these type of things, those are really the benefits.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope it answers the question. Nor has another question. If the product is novel, so I think a new one, but we're trying to prove some claims, the initial intended purpose will have no claims, and it will be updated after the claims is proven. Or how do we do this? So I suppose, yes, as I've said, it's an exercise that we are doing from the beginning to the end. At the beginning, there is some claims you are trying to prove, so you can claim something.
So at the beginning, you will have some claim. It might turn out that this claim is wrong. So that's the thing. At the end of the trials or of the study or your literature search, you might find out, okay, what I was claiming there, it's not true, or I have to formulate it in another way. But that you have no claims at all, as I said, it's hard because then your device would do nothing. It wouldn't even be a medical device. So it has to do something in order to. It has it's in the definition of in the NDR of a medical device. It has to do a therapy, do a prediction, give a diagnosis, and something like that.
Okay, great. I think it's good. I hope it answers the questions of the people. Okay, Cesare, I think we covered now. Let's go quickly maybe to give some examples. And for that, I prepared mind mapping. So I don't know if people know this kind of thing. I'm using that a lot. So what we can do is to do that together. That we can go through each of the steps. And you just have to tell me first, what is the first example that you have?
So first example, I prepare like a small app for predicting the likelihood of developing diabetes. I thought it's like a very basic medical application that does some sort of prediction.
Okay, medical application. We can say that for now. For prediction of what?
Diabetes. So it's not a diagnosis, it's a prediction of how likely you are to get diabetes. There are several scores out there that have been extensively clinical validated for telling you out of 100 people that have the same characteristics as you have, there are 3 will get diabetes in the next 10 years.
So it's what we talked at the beginning to say that maybe the person is a healthy person for now, is just to predict in future. So intended population, what should we say here?
I would say adult patients defined as 18 years of age or older.
Adult patients, 18 years of age or older. Okay, let's make it like that. Should we say something on the weight or?
No, not necessarily. Usually weight is like a parameter of the algorithm in this case, so it's like a part of the implementation. So there's no restriction there.
And the gender, I think woman and man can be touched.
That's also usually a parameter. It's not a restriction. It's like a feature.
Nationality also. So we just populate here the age of the person, so 18 years of age or older.
Sometimes for this course there are restrictions concerning nationality because the scores have been tested only on specific in a specific nation or so on, but it's more maybe related to ethnicities and let's say so.
Okay. So, but yeah, as we said, so this is just for indication, so you can use that or not in case it's applicable or not for your product. Let's go to indication.
So indications, I think here I would say no specification regarding indication, but maybe you want to exclude some groups. So in contraindication, for example, you might want to just exclude pregnant women because they are all this class of diabetes during pregnancy that is not covered maybe by your application, and now this is just an example. There might be other classes that you need to remove, and you say, okay, for these groups my software doesn't work, so they are for this group my software is not able to do the prediction.
Okay, so we exclude a pregnant woman. Somebody else to exclude here?
Oh, that's the only example I put here, but I mean there it really depends on a specific score that you use.
Okay, so let's do that. Intended user. Is the user also a patient?
Yes, in this case, it's a small app. You insert your data, and you get this probability. So actually, there is only one user, and this user is the patient, and that's it.
So here we say also it's only one user here.
Yeah, you can say no. I mean, usually I formulate it like the application XY is intended to be used by the patient. And
okay.
That's,
one user, which is the patient. Do you need an educational level for that?
You can say that you can put in parentheses, for example, lay person. So they explain that this person doesn't need to have any sort of medical background or medical experience.
Training level same. Just to know how to use an iPhone maybe or a smartphone.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I think it's also here it plays the rule grain of salt. So one can go down to, one must be able to move the fingers and stuff like that. I think that's, one has to find a balance between what I have to specify and what I think. If someone is able to install an app, they are most likely going to be able to use it, and
right.
That's also can be covering usability.
Here, experience with similar other products?
No experience required. Language scale, one might say, okay, my app is in English. You have to understand English, for example.
Okay, so let's say, for example, the app is only in English.
Yeah.
And physical requirements, I think no.
No.
Intended use, then, here we have a lot of points. Is there any points that are...
no, for such a simple app, and often for software, many of these points, they don't apply. For software, I think many of these sub-chapters are really like hardware specific, so for physical products, and many don't apply to software because of you don't have contact, you don't have cleaning, you don't have disinfection. It cannot be sterile, and so maybe you want to say something about compatibilities for software, but this is not the case for such a simple app. You might specify which type of device it is. But I mean, also there, only if it's really necessary. If the app doesn't install, in any case, if you don't have a specific version of Android, then you don't even need to specify it here. The user will find it out when they try to install it.
Okay. So here we maybe have nothing to say. And exactly. The last point is the claims. As we said, the majority, I think, will be on the intended population and the claims.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have claims here.
So you have a performance claims. The app allows predicting the probability of developing diabetes in the next 10 years.
Predicting
so probability of developing diabetes in the next 10 years.
Years, okay?
Yeah, typically these scores, they work for 5, 10, 20 years.
But just for one thing, maybe this is just a completely made examples, but when we are saying 10 years, means that do we need to have the proof of that within the 10 years? Or
this type of software, they are extremely well clinically validated, usually with thousands of patients, and they really collect data for 10 years. Okay. Or they have databases from patients from 10 years that have been collected for at least 10 years, and they can make this type of claims. Absolutely. Okay. If it's something new and you don't have enough data, you might either restrict here the range or try to justify why you're gonna why it's okay to collect the data on the way and verify that this really works for 10 years.
Okay. Benefit claims?
The benefit claims could be that the user the patient is able to see early whether he has risk factors, for example, or whether he is at risk of developing diabetes, and to act consequentially.
And act consequently. Okay, so mainly the objective is to say you know that you have a high probability to develop a diabetes, so you should detect those symptoms of that, or you should maybe change your way of eating.
Or consult or speak with the doctor. There may be a good chance they know that, and they go and talk to a doctor, and they will get medication earlier than if they didn't have this information. Okay. And for the health, there could be healthcare claims also I added. It might be that I don't know if you have this sub point here instead of non-clinical.
I can add it here. Healthcare claims.
So the state might be interested in supporting this type of application because it might allow to reduce healthcare costs. Now, if the patient alone is able to detect that is at risk, he might take action, and through that you might reduce the healthcare cost of.
But as we said, is this a non-clinical claims?
I would really classify it under healthcare claim. So okay. It's not stringently related to the patient, but it's also is not something that you can really test without having a patient. So I wouldn't say it's non-clinical.
Okay, yeah, it's a consequence, as you've said. So as people will know about their condition, know about their situation, they will reduce normally the healthcare cost because they will act before, and they will not wait that there is more disease.
Exactly, that they are seriously sick, and then they need therapies. So.
Okay.
And you can also, in this case, I would say there are no particular important clinical claims. You might have that. Like, okay, let's say maybe you have a function of journaling, which the user, the patient, can insert his data on a regular basis or every year and keep track of how that changed. That would be a non-clinical feature. So it's a journaling feature that doesn't have any clinical meaning, but it's a feature of the application.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, you could say that the apps should not be used to deliver automatic therapies. Not that everyone that gets a high score automatically gets a certain medication, because that's not how this information should be used. This information might be important to send a patient to a doctor, and then this doctor should decide whether a medication should be delivered or not. It shouldn't be done automatically through the output of the application.
Okay, I have just a question from Romuald Urbanski. So hi Romuald, who says this is an IVD. So can we say this is an IVD or?
No, this is not an IVD because it doesn't work on a sample that is taken from the body. It's work on data from the patient that are inserted from the patient. There might be information regarding the lifestyle or how the patient feels, level of pain. I don't know, that they're different of the thing. This is a medical device which is intended to do this prediction.
So we are not collecting any samples of the patients, like blood or anything. It's just parameters, life parameters, yes. And then from that we are it's the same as the beeping of if I can say of in an hospital to check your health. You are just getting the information, the parameter, and say you are good or you are bad, or here is the thing. So.
Yes, and also oh, sorry. So you collect these parameters. They have. You might also insert information about diseases. So there are scores that you can already say, I don't know, my relative have had this disease, or I have already, I don't know, yes, now for diabetes, I cannot make an example, but there are diseases that are more likely to appear if you, for example, have diabetes, or if you have an history. So those are also medical information that you insert you might be inserting in the app. Now, we are not describing here how the app works exactly, because that's
it's
the next step.
This is just an example, so it's not really something that that is just to give you some ideas. So we are not really going through in depth of this app on how it's working. I don't know if it's existing. I mean, maybe it's existing, but I'm not using this kind of applications. And here, what we are writing is just a summary. You should really be more have more information to feel like that. But it's just to tell you exactly how you can write some information on each of the boxes, if I can say that we described to you before. And the compilation of that will be the intended purpose.
Yeah, exactly. And remember, the intended purpose has to be placed identical in the clinical evaluation plan and in the instruction for use. So it will
be your master. So this will be the master, and the master will have to be put everywhere. Technical file, clinical evaluation report, clinical development plan, so that also for the investigation, all those things. So, I mean, you have to take that and really copy that everywhere. And if you change it on the master, you have to then remember where it is also written, so that you change it also on the other documents.
Yeah, usually the part that is most painful is the instruction for use, because they get printed. And then if you change something, it's you have to reprint them, or to change that part of the manual somehow. So that's usually where it's really important to remember to copy them 100% identical as in the rest of the documentation, because that's painful then to change.
Yeah. So let me save that somewhere. Save. Let me save that. And yeah, so as I've said, here is an example. So I don't know if people have some questions specific about maybe this example or another one. If there is some information that are still missing, do we start another one just to make it quickly?
Yeah, we can do.
So let me make a second. Yeah. Let me check. Where is it? I lost it. Sorry, I lost it. Open. We can make a second one. We just.
In the second one, I was really imagining like an app, like a device that can cure wounds using laser. I have no idea if such a device exists. It's just like a
science fiction. So maybe it exists, and we'll say it's Cesare Magri who created.
Yeah. So let's imagine there's this new technology. You can use laser to cure wounds, and there one. It's just to make an example where you have also some physical components. It's just not software or.
Okay, so you said laser healing something?
Yes, so the healing wounds with laser.
Healing wounds with laser. Okay. Let's do that again. So for people that are listening, so if there is anything that if you know already this kind of products and you can maybe help us, it would be great. So for the age, let me close that so it's easier to read.
I imagine that this device can only be used on a patient that are at least 10 years old, because it might be dangerous for very small children.
So 10 years old people, 10 years old children?
Starting from 10 years old, so 10 years and above. Yeah.
Okay, 10 years, more than 10 years.
Yeah, more than 10 years.
Okay.
And you might, since it has something to do with skins, you might have tested only on the Caucasian population. So you might have a restriction on ethnicity for which you have data that it only works. So skin type is very important, maybe. I don't know, and then it only works on Caucasian skin. I don't know.
Okay, Caucasian. Caucasian. Oh. Okay, or we can also put here like a skin, as you mentioned, some skin level or something like that. That
there are these. Actually, for some laser device, you really have to pay. Well, that's more like in the precaution. Usually, for some laser device, you have to pay attention to the skin type because you might leave spots that are darker or change color, and so you might only be able to use the device on darker skins because there you don't have this risk. Then that's usually warning in the intended use.
Okay, so we have that Caucasian 10 years. What else?
So medical indications would be injured skin or a wound of on the skin. Or
condition or disease?
That would be a medical indication, actually. Sorry, medical condition.
Condition, yeah.
Yeah.
So skin wound.
Yeah, skin wound, or one might have to specify the how large these wounds are. So maybe it's just wounds that are smaller than 1 centimeter. I don't know. There might be this type of specification.
Okay, we have to specify the parameters of the wound. So just to be more clear, I mean, if it's a big wound, I think this cannot be it cannot be used on it. But if it's a small one,
you have to say the wound cannot be on the face, or it has to be far away from the mucous membrane.
So should we do that on the contraindication?
Because laser could act differently there if it's reached
so
there.
we do that on contraindication, the fact that it should not be on the face.
I think that you could specify it in the description of the type of wound directly, or put it in the precautions. In the contraindication, I would put something like the device should not be used with patients with diabetes, for example, because usually there are skin issues there. And
clinical form, stage, severity, symptoms. Is there something here?
So I didn't went so much in detail. Honestly, we can think of examples.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's clear, and as everybody, it's not something that is mainly specific, maybe on mental illness or other. Somebody so due
that shouldn't play a role.
Write that.
Sorry, guys, I think I have some. I lost the last sentence.
Yeah, I hear some disconnections also. So yeah, I just said that there is maybe some other elements, but it depends really on the products and what you want to check here. On the contraindication, what do you have?
I would put diabetes, for example, because usually the skin might react differently, and the product might not work, or one has to be particularly careful there. That's
okay.
I just inserted that, but there might be more. You might don't want to have certain type of allergies. I don't know, or some type of skin disease.
Okay. Next one is intended user.
I thought that this device should be used by the patient's physician.
So not self-used.
Not self-used, but or from an expert, or
education level maybe of the expert.
One can say, for example, the physician should be an expert in dermatology. That could be should have a qualification in dermatology, or should if it's necessary, depending on where you sell where you sell the device in which country, to discriminate between the different types of degrees. I mean, that might also be the case. Must have a master or a PhD or something like that.
Okay, a master degree on something.
Specialization in dermatology or laser therapy.
Other therapy specialization. So does it need to have a training for the material, for the equipment?
It might be that you have to train them to use the device, and so you might have to write the user must receive a training for using the device.
Okay. Experience with similar other products. So if it's the only product that exists on the market, then it's
no. Language skill, you might have. I don't know if it's relevant. You might have to say English, German, French. I don't know.
English, German, French. Okay. Physical requirements for the user?
I would say no.
No. Okay, next one, intended use.
So here one can specify several things. For example, intended point of use. That would be like the medical praxis or hospital. Not that it is used at homes or in external outside. So
indoor?
Yeah, indoor. That could be a specification. Yeah. User environment, yes, with indoor, no reflecting surfaces, for example, because it's a laser. Have a temperature between -20 and 40 degrees. One might have to specify the humidity.
Humidity?
For example.
What 90%, 80%, 70%, 60%?
Let's say 80% humidity max. You know.
Okay, 80% maximum.
And temperature between -20 and 40 degrees.
Between minus what?
-20 and 40 degrees Celsius.
40 degrees Celsius, okay.
I mean, it's. I was just making.
I know.
I put some values. Honestly, I didn't think extremely too much about it.
Okay, time of use, is there something here?
Location of use, you must say. Yeah, for example, you could say only small wounds on the hand or on the arm. It's not suited. It's only suited for the limbs and not for the rest of the body. So that could be
small wound on the hand. On what?
You can say only limbs, and the device is only intended to be used on the limbs. For example, it might be a restriction.
Okay. Duration and frequency of use?
You can say the device can be used for 5 minutes for each wound, and only once every 4 weeks.
Five minutes for each wound. And what? Every 4 weeks?
Only maximally every 4 weeks, for example.
Okay. I think we are creating a great intended purpose here. What about the rest?
So whether you specify here, even if it's maybe redundant, that the device is not intended to come into to contact the patient, just to make it clear that one should not use it in contact with the patient, but just with a certain distance.
Okay. Minimum distance of 3 centimeters, let's say.
Also, this is nice for the auditor, that he knows that there is no contact.
Good.
Cleaning or cleaning, that the device can be cleaned with alcohol, and probably it doesn't need to be disinfected, but cleaned at least.
Okay.
Required equipment, that both the user and the patient should wear goggles. protective goggles.
Okay. Like that, goggles? G, I think.
Goggles is like Google, but with 2G. Genau, yes. So, or the user might have to wear gloves. That's also another important
So as
thing.
soon as you give all those information, I think we have more clarity now on how this can be used, what they should wear, what they should do, not do, and then people are aware of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What are the precautions, maybe?
And I didn't write anything, honestly.
Okay, no, it's fine. It's okay. Just wanted to check. And claims now, lastly.
Claims, performance claims. It might be that the device can kill 80% of the bacteria that are on the wound. That it's a clinical claim.
Okay. Anything else?
And the benefit would be that the wounds heal 50% faster compared to when a plaster is used.
Sure. Okay. Healthcare claims, no?
No, I didn't put anything. I mean, maybe for a real device there will be some stuff there, but I didn't.
I think it's okay. I
didn't think of any.
We really showed all the examples here, which explain really. So you can see that at the end we have here more and more data. And when you pick all those data one by one, you create really your intended purpose, and then people can really write that directly inside their technical file and use that for all the other elements.
Such a brainstorming tool is ideally for discussing with colleagues what actually should I write there, and then one can put it into a text form that it's like in sentences. But that's a great idea for you gather with colleagues and say, well, what do we have to put in the contraindication? And then slowly during the discussion you get more points. Usually that's typically the case. Now you don't have immediately the whole picture, but you build it slowly like this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I look at the comments. I have a question from Kirsty Happonen, which says, "Could you include storage transport condition in the intended use section, or is that better left elsewhere?"
So I think. So I don't usually do it because I think it's in any case needs to be specified in the rest of the technical documentation. So I would only really put it if there's something that's particularly extraordinary. I don't know that really needs to be specified in order to ensure that the claims can be reached. But I mean this part of about storage and storage specification, they have to be in the technical documentation already.
Okay, so I just put it here optional for people if there is really some clear or information that can damage the product without that. But as you mentioned, it's also something that is claimed on the labeling. It's something that is claimed.
Yes. It needs to be somewhere in the technical documentation. And here, the idea is really, you have to imagine there's going to be a doctor that might read this intended purpose and say, okay, this is the device I need. I mean, I need exactly the device that does this for this type of patient. And it might not really be looking at the storage and transport. Also, usually, often the things that have to do with storage and transport, you can verify them. You don't need to do tests with patients for proving that they are right. There are technical things that you can easily cover in the technical documentation. Usually.
Okay, good. Okay, she answered. She said makes sense. So thank you, Cesare. Okay, so I think we have covered everything. We have made the examples and everything. What I propose to you is that I will record that again, save it, template 2. Mm-hmm. I will create some documents, and I will put that also on the show notes when I will put the replay. So then you can get also those files. Yeah. Inside the files, I put here the link of the podcast, and I put the attachment, which is your document. So the document is at the beginning. So the document here that people can also get and then use if they want. So great. So I think, is there any other questions? I don't think. I look at them. Yeah, they are still talking about the parliament vote, final vote. Apparently it's in favor, so it's great. Okay, so I think Cesare will covered everything, so thank you for that. If then people have more questions, they can come directly to you and ask you directly. I think you'll be helpful for them. But as we mentioned to everybody, so remember that all what we are saying here is something that you have really to do. It's not a last minute exercise. You have really to do that with your team as a brainstorming and really understand what you are putting as the different words, because the auditor will challenge you on each of the things that you are mentioning here. Okay.
And so, also try to have an external. Sometimes it really helps to get out of this group thinking in a company. So if someone external that sees the things already like the auditor is going to see them. For example.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah. Sometimes you are really in your bubble and you don't see anymore what's happening. So having somebody external that is coming is also something. So don't hesitate to contact us. Okay, so thank you for that. So Cesare, thank you. As I said to the people, so please go to the YouTube channel if you want to subscribe there, and you will get the replay and also the show notes so that you can get all what we have done today. I will give you the documents. I will give you the min mapping also. And it's made the HTML file, so like a website. So you have just to click on it, and then it opens like min map, and you see all what we have done today. So I will just keep it as is. I will not change anything, so that you see exactly what we discussed today. Okay, so thank you for that. So Cesare, thank you. I wish you
very much.
Weekend. And let's have a great weekend with celebration of this 1 year extension of the MDR for people that are not ready for now. Okay, so I wish you a nice weekend, and thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you everybody for the time. Bye-bye.
Bye.